traded all of that for some part-time pleasure. And it got so bad, he lost everything he had. So to try to regain what he had, he made the situation worse. Because he ended up selling himself into slavery. He hired himself out. Now, you got to understand that nobody took him into slavery. Nobody, kidnapped him and said, "You're coming with me and you're going to work for me." He sold himself into slavery. And let me back up. After he lost everything, a famine took over the land. As if he needed more problems. Now, there's no food, there's no water. He has no money, he has no clothes. He's in slavery. This is what happens when you try to live outside of the base of God. Problems just compound and compound and get worse and worse and worse. So not only is he homeless, he's broke, he's hungry, he has no money, he has no clothes. And so he sells himself into slavery. Now what this slavery is that he's hired himself out. So what this means is that he is slave to one man, but his slave master can sell him or loan him out to other people. So not only is he slave to one man, he has the possibility of becoming a slave to other people. So he tried to fix this problem by buying his freedom and buying clothes, but in the process he just made the problem worse and worse and worse. And oftentimes that's where we find ourselves today. We take the position that is opposite of God's will and we submit ourselves and to become slaves to our addiction, slaves to our pornography, slaves to our spouses, slaves to our children, slaves to our jobs. And what ends up happening is not only do you become a slave to that, but the mountain of troubles and issues just get higher and higher and higher, and you're constantly trying to climb your way out on your own. But we had never been programmed to function without God. Then when we have our problems, we have the audacity to ask God, why weren't you there for me? Why didn't you help me out in the first place? But God is asking the question, why weren't you where I told you to be in the first place? I can hear my mom always used to say, well, if you had listened to me in the first place, you wouldn't have that problem. Man, if you would just have listened to me, I know you think you're grown, I know you're getting old, I know you have your own thoughts and ways, but I'm your mother for a reason. I'm your father for a reason. I've been where you've been. I've done what you have done. I'm coming from where you're trying to go. If you would just listen to me, you probably would have never left home in the first place. And the longer we stay away from God, the worse our situations become. Because his first job, or at least the one job that they talk about in the parable, is that he fed the pigs. Whoever he was working for, he fed the pigs. Now, pigs were, they very nasty. They still nasty to this day. They sloppy. You don't want to be around them. And for a Jew to be messing around with pigs, whether it was feeding them or petting them, Jews just did not do pigs. That was defiling to them. But this young man said, you know what? I'm in so much of a bad situation that I would defile myself even more than I already am. And I would feed the pigs. But not only did he say he would feed the pigs, it got so bad, he said, you know what? This slop is looking pretty good. He said, it got so bad, he said, you know what? Pigs move over, I'm hungry too. I have nothing to eat. He wanted to eat the slop that the pigs eat. And Lord, help the church today that slop is what we want to eat. Lord, help us, man. And I don't get it because, we adopt the gospel. We'll put salt and butter on the gospel. We'll put hot sauce on the backbite. We'll fry the chicken. And we will devour that stuff up like it's nutritious and delicious. This young man wanted to eat with the pigs. But then on top of all of this, being away from home, he's learning his lesson that you don't get the kind of help outside of the house that you do at home. Because it says not only did he want to eat the pigs, but nobody else would help him. So my question is, what happened to all the groupies that were with him earlier in the parable? What happened to all the homeboys that was with him earlier in the parable? What happened to all the friends that wanted to hang out with him when he came in with all his money and his clean clothes and his good looks and his tall stature? Where are all the people that wanted him in the beginning? Well, it's plain to see that, you know, there are some people that you will come across when it's all good, it's all good. When it's all good, they want you to be their friend, you that best friend, that ace cocoon, they top dog. But when you have nothing, they go find somebody else who looks just as good, who has just as much money, who has better looking clothes. When you're away from home, these are the problems that you encounter. So he comes to his senses. So obviously, the father did teach him something. He taught him something because he realized that, you know what, I can't do this on my own. I can't make it on my own. I went from having everything at my father's house. In the beginning, God said everything was good. In the beginning, everything we had was all right. But while we were roaming the land, we wound up by this tree of good and evil. And somebody said, well, you know what? You don't need God. You're all right. I got something better for you. And so just like that in the beginning, this young man realized that his father in the beginning, everything was cool. But when he tried to live outside the covenant of his father, everything went down here. He went from having a home to being homeless. He went from having clothes to being naked. He went from being rich to being a slave. He went from having a brother and some family to not having anybody at all. And using foresight, the brother didn't even think he deserved any help. That's bad when your own family members don't want to help you out. It's all right that those who want to use you for what you had don't help you. But his own brother in foresight said, Father, I've been working for you like a slave all this time. I never disappointed you. I stayed right here. I never spent my portion of the estate that you gave me. But yet still, he's coming home and you celebrate like he did something right. But he did do something right. He came back home. That's what he did right. And so he said, you know what, I'm going to go to my father and say, you know, I know I messed up. I'm undeserving of your love, but, you know, I need you. So he was on his way home. He started his way back home, but before he could even get to the house, the text says his father saw him afar off. Father didn't even wait for him to start coming any closer. The father ran after him and embraced him with his arms. And he said, son, you know what? Don't worry about that. I love you. And he said to his servants, he said, you know what? Get the fatted calf. Get the best clothes you have. We're going to have a festival. Now keep in mind, they're still in the family. You're right. Keep in mind, they're still in the family. Everybody else is out of food. Everybody else is out of water but this young man's father. And ain't it good to know that we serve a true and living God who never has a thing. God is always able to provide for you no matter what the situation may be. Yes, sir. And even in the midst of this severe famine, the father was still able to provide for his son. Everything that the son lost while he was away from home, the minute he returned home, he regained all of it and then some. So yes, that ought to be good news, but I have to warn us that there are going to be some people in our lifetime, especially when times are hard, that they don't want to tell us that you can make it without God. In 2007, the New York Football Giants wasn't having that great of a season in the beginning. You know, everybody started talking about, well, you should fire their coach, Tom Coughlin. They said that you should just get rid of him. He's getting old. It's past his time. We ought to get a new coach. Right after that press conference the next week, they lost another game. And so the talks really kicked up. But that following week after that next loss, they went on a winning streak. They found themselves in the playoffs. They beat my Dallas Cowboys. Then they found themselves in the Super Bowl playing against the undefeated, powerful New England Patriots. Now, the New England Patriots were undefeated, 18-0. They were trying to become only the second team in history to post an undefeated record for the whole season, and the only team to post a 19-0 record. But New York Giants, they kept their coach, they kept their faith, they didn't run away from what their coach taught them, and they won the Super Bowl. Yes, now, I'm going to tell you, there are going to be some people in your life who are going to tell you to get rid of God as your coach. They're going to tell you that you can make it on your own. They're going to tell you that you can be the interim coach until they find you something better. But I'm here to tell you that there is no coach better than God himself. There is no such thing as a losing season when you have Jesus on your side. Every season is a winning season with Jesus Christ. So whenever you find yourself thinking about running away from home, if there's anybody here who's thinking about running away from home, if there's anybody here who has strayed away, I just have one message for you. Come back home. Come back to the place where your foundation was laid. I believe the temptations will put it to you like this. Runaway child. Running wild. You better come back home. Where you belong. You're lost out here in this city. Yes, sir. Come back home. Where you belong. Yes, sir. It's not a familiar face out there. Nobody wants to help you when you're down. Come back home. Where you belong. You're hungry. You have no place to stay. You want your mom to come here. Well, if you want the help that you had before, God is saying, come back home where you belong. Because at home, I know a man. Oh, who you can depend. I know a man. The songwriter says, who will go with you through the thick and the thin. And his name is Jesus. Leave you alone. All you have to do is to put all of your trust, not just some of it, but all of your trust in him. Said no need to worry when you can't see your way. But we have a friend named Jesus who will hear you every time you pray. Just put all your trust in him and come on back home. Jesus, the rose of Sharon. Jesus, the lily of the valley. Jesus, the bright and morning star. Jesus, the great I am. Jesus, the bread of life. Jesus, the well that never once dry. Jesus, who came to 42 generations to save a wretch like you and me. He died on the cross, but on that third day morning, he got up with all power in heaven and earth in his hands. And he's coming back to take us home. But the question will be, are we ready? Have we prepared ourselves? Have we accepted the call to the Christian faith? There will be times where you don't know what to do. But I tell you, if you come back home, there is help waiting at the door. Jesus will not wait for you to get to the door, but Jesus will embrace you and walk you through the door. So if there's anybody who is here on today, who is thinking about running away from home, or who has run away from home, the deacons are coming. We have some advice for you. Come back home where the help is. Come back home where the love is. There is no greater love than what you can receive from your Father.